Hi, everybody. I'm George, and this is the best little horror house in Philly, the show where we talk about the best horror movie ever made, according to our guest, at least. And today's guest is a really exciting one. You might know her from her time on Pop Rocket or as the co-host of the wonderful Waiting to Exhale podcast, which just entered its third season. Wynter Mitchell-Rohrbaugh is here. How's it going?
Hi, George. Hi, everybody. It's great to be here.
Well, we're absolutely thrilled to have you. This is an exciting one because when we first started chatting, we were like, first you threw out a ton of options. You were like, I'm so ready. I
am psyched.
Yeah. And so before we even get into the movie that you did pick, why don't you tell us a little bit about your history with horror? If it's something that you've been watching for a long time or if it's more recent.
George, that would be a whole episode in itself. I have to say that, like, my first experience with horror that I can remember, it's kind of twofold. There was one film that my mother and father, it was like 1980. I was born in 80, so it was like 1982, 83. We just moved to Los Angeles. And we were in Los Angeles for a couple of years because my dad got a promotion and his company merged with another airline. So we had to be in LA while he did training. So it was kind of a culture shock because I'm from San Francisco. So already, you're 2 to 3 years old. You're already thrust into like a new situation. My little sister had just been born. So it was just like a lot of transition at the same time.
Sounds like it.
Yeah. So everything was just like, it was just very different. And I remember that my parents were watching a movie that to this day, I don't know what the fuck that... Can I curse?
Yeah.
Okay.
I figure if they're old enough to watch the movies, they're old enough to hear a curse.
Okay, good. I don't know what the fuck this movie was, but it was like aliens erupting from pods. And then before, they lived there for a little while. We were in an apartment and there were some kids that lived above us. And these kids were like full on Friday the 13th, huge fans. And
nice.
We watched a lot of horror with them. I was way too young to watch it, but I think my first true experience of horror was sort of a trifold of like An American Werewolf in London, which I made my mom and dad rent because I liked the box.
That's an intense one to start with.
And it was nightmares on... I could not go to the bathroom without thinking that a decaying bud of mine was going to be standing next to me. I'm not joking. For at least like 7 or 8 years, I did not pee with the medicine cabinet closed.
Wow.
I would open it, pee, wash
surprises,
my hands, and then run out and close it because I was like, I don't want any surprises. Some people, like, it's so funny because boomers are like, shower curtains, and I'm like, medicine cabinets. And then it was Nightmare on Elm Street, it drops, and that was huge because the marketing on Nightmare on Elm Street was just Nightmare, just the marketing alone, if anybody remembers. It came out, it was low budget, and then it blew up, and then it just was like full-on Freddy mania from that point. So that was also an experience. And then finally, like, the Twilight Zone movie, because I would watch the Twilight Zone with my grandparents, and I was like, this is easy. This is fine. This will be... That opening scene with Albert Brooks and Dan Aykroyd fucked me up. So for a while I was like, am I a pussy? Do I not like horror movies? But then I realized that I love the feeling of being scared and not knowing what's going to happen. And that plunged me into my obsession with horror movies. My husband and I, we watch a horror movie if we can. We've exhausted every streaming. Shudder is useless to us. I just donate as a volunteering scenario because their library is trash and I just wait for Joe Bob. Tubi, we've done Tubi, but Tubi doesn't know how to categorize what's horror.
Very
so sometimes,
true, yeah.
Sometimes they'll be like Christmas movies. I'm like, sure, okay, horror. But, like anytime, and the worst thing about this pandemic is that there were so many horror films on the horizon that have been shelved or pushed out, and it's a bummer because I was looking forward to all those films coming out sort of this fall. Halloween, Candyman, and it's just a bummer. But
even stuff that was like sort of horror adjacent that looked really cool and dark, like Green Knight looked really cool. Saint Maud looked really cool.
Oh, Saint Maud looks amazing.
So hopefully those all find another release date or go to VOD relatively soon. But definitely, I sympathize with your pain there.
Yeah, it's pretty dry out there.
Yeah. Well, so clearly you're all over the place in terms of the genre. Do you have a favorite subgenre within horror that you're like you're like, oh, this is just where I tend to gravitate to?
I think as I've gotten older, because now I know what the jump scares are. I know what's going to be.
You know the tropes, the beats.
I know the tropes, the beats. I'm very much into A24 horror.
Yeah.
So I'm very much, like Midsummer and what's the other one that he did before Midsummer? Hereditary. Yeah. Ari Aster. Those films, I like really, I like psychological horror, right? I think psychological horror is special, but I also think that a lot of people can't do it. I think there was this era in the early aughts where people were just like, it's scary, but it's PG-13. And it's like, that's not scary, and this is all trash, and the CGI is horrible. And I just wasted money going to see whatever crap. But then I also really love, I think, not even subgenre, body horror is still a very good one. I mean, John Carpenter is one of my most favorite directors because he ties it all together. The soundtrack, the characters, the actors putting them in the role, the environment. It's just all over the place, but it's all still, nicely pulled together. And I always think about how The Thing did so terribly.
Yeah.
If The Thing came out probably maybe 2 years later, it probably would have done a lot better than it did. So yeah, like psychological body horror and anything in that vein. I loved It Follows. I loved
a modern day classic for sure.
Modern day classic, and would love to see more from that guy. And Neon Demon.
Also
I
great.
know people shit on it, but
Nicholas Winding Refn. He's not batting 100 or batting 1,000 in my book, but when he hits, I mean, he really hits.
He really hits.
That's really great. Did you see Color Out of Space earlier this year?
Oh, Color Out of Space.
So good.
So good. I mean, so good.
Yeah,
and that's
great
what I'm
body
talking
horror,
about.
yeah.
Great body horror. And those are the things that I'm looking for. I'm looking for all those elements together because I want to be scared out of my mind.
Yeah.
And the thing about Neon Demon is that movie is so all over the place. It's the only movie in Keanu Reeves' repertoire where you forget that he's in it.
Yeah.
Every time he shows up in Neon Demon, and I've seen it like 10 or 11 times, I'm like, oh, I forgot he was in this.
Oh, shit, Keanu.
Oh, shit, Keanu. That's right.
Oh, you're kind of gross in this movie.
You're kind of gross in this movie. But I love I mean, that's the shit I'm talking about.
Yeah, for sure.
That gets me revved up.
Hell yeah. Well, so because you are so versed in knowledge about horror, the movie that you picked today was a first-time watch for me, which I was really, really excited about because, and I'm thrilled that you did, because this movie absolutely ruled. I love it.
Oh, yes, George!
Yeah.
Yes! Yes!
Yeah, it's great. We're talking about the 2015 release that absolutely needs more eyes on it, Anthony de Blasi's Last Shift.
Yeah, man.
It was just so great. De Blasi, he also co-wrote it with Scott Poiley, and both of them also produced along with Mary Poiley. So very small team. They're just kind of keeping it close. It's really interesting, too, because he said that he wanted to make sort of a smaller, contained film because that's how you create an atmosphere, is when you can really contain it. And
holy shit, yes.
Yeah. He does it so well. And I mean, like you were talking about with John Carpenter, where he kind of ties everything together in terms of like the score and the sound design and everything. That's very much on display in this as well. I mean, the sound design in this is absolutely great.
And lends to the spookiness, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And what I also, in terms of that psychological horror that you were talking about, and something that I really love as well, is that sense of ambiguity as to what's going on.
Yes.
He made the movie to be experienced from her point of view instead of like a detached third person, so that you're along for the ride and not sure about what's going on. And that's part of what I love about Nightmare on Elm Street. That's part of what I love about this as well.
Yeah.
Do you like that sort of ambiguity, or are you sort of like, this is an exception, usually I like things to be pretty concrete?
No, I don't like things to be concrete. I think that it's getting harder and harder to do those things. I think that's particularly why I loved the new Halloween 2018, because what's there left to be ambiguous about? There's Michael Myers, 45 years of this character, and it's like, what else can you do? And somehow they bring it back again to that psychological. You see the psychological that Jamie Lee Curtis is dealing with, and Laurie, and you just know that whatever she's expecting, she's expected. She's dealt with a lot. I mean, she's been stabbed. She's been thrown out of shit. I mean, what else could possibly happen? And when you can bring in another thread of that, that's fantastic. And I think that The Last Shift was able to do that. I mean, this is a film that found it on Tubi. I have to give Tubi a shout out because Tubi is at least Tubi tries.
Fuck yeah.
Shudder. Just not try. Tubi tries.
Tubi definitely tries.
Tubi definitely
You must
tries.
respect. You must respect.
You must
Tubi.
respect. They like the Italian. I forgot to say my other favorite genre is Italian. Vintage Italian horror. And
hell yeah, classic Giallo stuff.
Oh my God, the Giallo.
Yeah.
There's shit on there. My husband and I are looking at it and be like, I don't know what's happening, but I'm just gonna keep going.
Yeah, that sounds like Giallo to me.
But no, like The Last Shift, I'm sitting here and I'm thinking like, it's another cop thing. It's another, pretty girl in a police officer suit. But then it just starts pulling into these different spaces right away.
Yeah.
And it leads you to think it's going to be one thing. You think it's going to be just like slasher, and then it's the mind fuckery. It is definitely not. The mind fuckery is just beyond. It was very compelling. Fantastic.
Yeah. The main character, her name is Jessica Lauren. She's played by Juliana Harkavy, who, I mean, she has to carry this movie. Like, it's incredible how much work she has to do to make this succeed, and she does.
Yeah, and I'd never even heard of her before. She apparently, I think she was on the CW. She may have been on one of those shows, which makes sense.
Yeah.
She has that look like Canadian and ambiguously ethnic. But, when I'm watching the movie, the one thing that I thought was interesting was having her be a cop in, following in her father's footsteps.
Definitely.
And I definitely liked that idea. And I thought it was going to be one of those situations where she's like, she did it as a matter of obligation, but no, she was doing it because her father was killed on duty, and this was sort of her, following in his footsteps and sort of like, it was like honoring him. What really screwed me up is the fact that she's learning about this incident that happened with her dad, which I couldn't remember. Did the incident cause his death, or did it happen while he was on?
I think he was like responding to the shootout at the farm,
right?
And then he died, but they managed to capture the cult, which brought them back to the police station. So he was like the hero. Like everyone was like, oh, like he's the one who made this possible. And there's definitely that, like you said, there's definitely different sorts of like obligation in terms of like. Yeah. I just expect you to do this because it's the way it's always been versus there's a legacy that I'm trying to live up to. And that's what she's really going for. And she manages to communicate that incredibly well.
Especially with it being this, the full responsibility of shutting down this precinct, right?
Yeah.
This precinct that I feel like if this happened in real life, everybody would know that this police station is closing down. So you would get some crazies coming around, just sorry, I didn't know you're
yeah,
and then we point them in the wrong direction. But she was sort of surveilling this with she was taking it seriously.
Yeah. I mean, it's her first night. She's like, even if I'm getting the shit end of the stick here, I'm going to do my best to do it right.
Yeah.
In terms of that police station, though, I thought it was interesting that this wasn't like a set that they built. They just found an actual abandoned police station in Sanford, Florida, and they shot the movie there.
Yeah.
I went looking for budget information, and I couldn't really find it anywhere, and so I just reached out to Anthony DeBlasi, and he said, "Look
at you, George!
Yeah, that's taking initiative right there."
Wow!
And he said that they shot the movie for $150,000 all in.
Get out!
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yeah, he said that they did it like as a challenge to themselves. And I got this quote from him. He said,
"Wow.
It was the third movie that I did with that production team, so I knew we could pull it off. The other two movies were much higher budget than that, so I really wanted to see how far we could push ourselves. I threw out that number almost on a whim because it made sense to me, but it's the exact number we settled on. But it took massive planning and dividing our back-end profits up in a much more generous way, as well as myself and the producers not taking fees. So
that's fantastic.
Yeah, it was very much like a passion project, something that they wanted to get done. And so they're like, we're going to make this happen any way that we can.
That's fantastic. I mean, it didn't seem... the only thing that shocks me about it is that, look, the set itself... that set didn't require much, right? You could have just used even all the crap, any building and dressed it up. It was the special effects. I mean, the gore in this film is incredible. So for 150 grand, this is why, with everything that's going on, George, with everything that we're learning about the economy and what economics are in terms of what things cost, because we're having to slash and, reduce and do. I no longer believe you need a $35 million budget to pull things off, some certain pictures off. I mean, if they can do this on 150 grand, I'm not saying that people should be paid less than what they deserve or should not take a fee at all, but I definitely think
a reevaluation. If he had $1 million, that would have been, but I really think that looking up the ladder and the fees that producers are taking and stuff.
I mean, we're due for the reckoning is in progress.
Yes, it's on the horizon for sure. And look, the fact of the matter is that horror really lends itself to this sort of thing as well, because it's so often it needs to be high concept. It needs to be something that you can really sell in a quick sentence, and it has to be digestible. Yeah. This is not to say that there aren't character study horror movies, because there are, but by and large, they're definitely more these sort of concept based movies. And when you're able to do that and not have to invest so much into puffing up the other aspects to keep people interested, you're able to sort of invest the money where it really needs to go, which is into making the movie actually look good and just keep it at a reasonable price. as we see here.
Reasonable price. I mean, I think back to why things became high concept, and I think it has to do a lot with that Star Wars era. And it was if science fiction fantasy can blow it out of the water, we can do the same thing with horror. And I feel like in the 80s, that's where you start getting these big, huge, big budget films, because they want to create franchises, right? So they want the Friday the 13th, 27. They want Nightmare on Elm Street 9. They want Saw 10. But I'm starting to think that there is no need for these. I'm starting to think that there is, if anything, we're pulling back off of that concept. I don't, for the longest time I wanted to see Freddy versus Jason versus Ash, but now I'm thinking to myself, do I?
Right. At what cost?
At what? Literally and figuratively, at what cost? Do I want to see Freddy versus Jason versus Ash? I don't know if it's that, and I'm getting specific about the type of content I want to digest when it comes to more how good is this director? How creative is this writer?
How many movies could be made for that movie?
Yes, exactly. And we see a lot of situations where the recent reboot of Nightmare on Elm Street, where it's exactly trash, garbage, bad, Child's Play reboot, trash, garbage, bad. I mean, did you need to do that? No. Or are you going to do what you're ultimately going to do and give Brad Dourif back his baby and put it on a small screen? I mean, at what cost are we doing these things and not really being true to fans and creating new fans? You know what I mean? And I think Last Shift is a film that creates new fans of a genre that mixes so many, The Last Shift has very Carpenter-esque elements of it. It's got that, what's the film he did? Here I go. What's the film he did?
Assault on Precinct 13?
Yes. It has a little bit of that, because Precinct 13 is a drama action, right? But it has very kind of horror, that being on edge is something that I think he really captures.
The tension, for sure.
The tension is just there. And I think that we are, post-COVID are going to see more films just like The Last Shift. I mean, that film could have easily have been made during a pandemic. right? It's just one actress, not a lot of crew on set, not a lot of touching and this,
keep the camera 6 feet back.
Keep the camera 6 feet back. You're good to go. And I think this puts people in a position to become more creative. I mean, also the cult, that cult B story about the cult being the one that's haunting the station and sort of reckoning with the daughter of their killer, right? I feel like that was, a great way to tie it together. But I mean, easily we have to talk about the part that was the part.
Yeah. Definitely. Hey, well, we'll definitely get to it. I mean, I really want to go through this movie because there's so much that's great about it.
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah.
The last thing I'll say before we really get into the plot is that some of his influences that he cited were John Carpenter, A Nightmare on Elm Street, and the Charles Manson documentary Manson from 1973, which, for my money, they're all very visible, but there's nothing wrong with wearing your influences on your sleeve. I think that being able to recognize those influences helps strengthen what's already good about this, where the Nightmare on Elm Street aspects of it, where I'm like, oh, this is like Nightmare on Elm Street, where maybe she fell asleep or maybe she's awake, and that sort of thing is like, oh, now I'm really interested. I understand where he's taking from in horror history.
Right.
So good influences, Anthony.
Good influence. I mean, people can always say that this is who their influence is going to be, but how does that executed? When I think about the fact that, you look at a new Halloween and it's written by Halloween fans, you have to think about the notion that you don't want to replicate what's been done before, but you want to keep those core elements. You want to do right by the source material, but you also want to bring something new to it that would keep somebody. What would a fan want to see?
Right.
And so that's what I think is so important here about what Anthony did with this movie, is he did act like a fan in creating this film.
Definitely. I think that that's a really great point, too. I mean, it's the difference between something feeling like another worn-out extension of a franchise and something like The Spiral from the Book of Saw, where, people know that Chris Rock is a big fan of the Saw series. And for someone like him to, really step in and be like, here's what I want to see as a fan, and having been along for the whole ride, to me, that's exciting. That someone who knows what we're going through as fans.
Exactly.
And it's definitely a much better look at how it proceeds. All right, we're going to take a quick break, but we'll be right back to the show. Ooh, this is the Ghost of George, and it's getting to be the spooky season. However you're getting your scares in, they go better with Tuck-Ins, the all-in-one inside-out s'more. Each Tuck-In has crunchy handmade graham cracker covered in decadent chocolate, all tucked inside a fluffy marshmallow. And the best part is, because they're self-contained, you can roast them anywhere. Around a fire pit while you're telling ghost stories, or even just over the stove for a sweet movie treat alternative to popcorn. They also come in multiple flavors, and while you can't go wrong with classic, I gotta say that I'm a cookies and cream guy personally. Plus, it's a local company owned by 2 previous guests on this very show. And since they like the show so much, they're giving listeners a 15% discount if you use the offer code BEST15 at tuckins.com. That's BEST15 at tuck-ins.com for 15% off. So don't wind up with a bag of stale mallows in the back of your pantry. Check out Tuck-Ins today. And now, back to the show. So we open up on Jessica Lauren, who's a rookie police officer, literally about to take her first shift, and she's on the phone with her mom, and it's immediately relatable. I mean, how many times have I been like, we've had this discussion before, while you're just getting hectored.
Yeah.
It's great. And they also managed to interweave some backstory right away as well. They kind of allude to her father's policeman job and how he was killed on duty and everything, and so we get a sense of this character even before she's really done anything, which I think is super important in terms of relatability.
Yeah, no, I feel like immediately you get the sense that she's tough, right? She's had to, I don't want to say lived a hard life, but she's definitely taking everything seriously about what she's about to embark upon. And I think, the inclusion of the mom being just wired, it helps set the tone for the film, right? Because we know that some bad shit is gonna happen. That's why we're there watching the movie. But clearly,
I thought it was a comedy.
But no, it's much different than when you think about Training Day, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Training Day opens with Ethan Hawke's character, like his baby and his wife, and you're just like, oh, this should be interesting. You don't know what's to come,
right?
But in this movie, you're getting the sense that some bad shit went down, in knowing that some bad shit is to come.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely a great tone setter. And
yeah.
Her first shift is she's taking the last shift at a police station before it's permanently closed because they built a new one up the street. Mm-hmm. And she brushes off her mom and reports for duty. And she meets Sergeant Cohen, who seems like a real weirdo. Like he's like just like freaking out down the hall when we first meet him. But he leads her on like this brief tour, and he says that a hazmat team will be there later in the night to collect some evidence that they can't just throw out because it's like it has blood or bodily fluids and stuff on it. Yeah. So she's not allowed to leave the premises because she's the only one there. Mm-hmm. And one thing I really love that they kind of come back to frequently in this is that the movie really kicks off with this great close-up on the clock and the clock hands moving.
Yes.
And the shift starts at 8, and it's this like really intense kind of David Lynchy close-up where he really loves to get super intense on it, and this is right up against it.
Interesting to note that the film is 87 minutes.
Yeah.
So we don't get that. What is that? That's an hour and 17 minutes? 27 minutes?
27, yeah. Just under an hour and a half.
Yeah. So movies usually aren't, these days especially.
Yeah.
We're pushing 2 hours for a lot of these movies these days, and for a horror film I think that's way too long.
You're preaching to the choir right now. You see a movie that's literally, I texted my friend and I was like, it's under 90 minutes.
Exactly. I'm like, oh good, it's under 90 minutes, it's great. I mean, Midsummer is the one exception. I feel like you have to watch that movie in its entirety,
but you have to earn your length, and a lot of horror movies don't do that.
Exactly. So. You have to earn that is a great saying, George. That's absolutely. and that's why I'm saying this movie to me is perfect at 87 minutes.
Yeah, she falls asleep like right away.
Yeah.
And she dozes off and the book drops and she quote unquote wakes up. Right. And from that point on, everything goes out the window. You're like, who knows? Who knows what's happening now?
What is time? Right.
Like I said, this is great. This is like classic Nightmare on Elm Street territory. It's what I love about that franchise. It's pretty much the most interesting thing about it to me is that sense of ambiguity, and this conjures that immediately.
Yeah.
She gets a phone call from a woman who says like a bunch of creepy stuff about being trapped and other people might be dead, and the line goes dead. This is your classic scary phone call. You gotta have it. It's a tried and true method. You love to hear it. It sets you on edge right away.
God, that was scary. I love how she's like, she was really like, like not really shaken up yet.
Yeah, she's like, okay, I have to maintain my calm. I'm a police officer. And she calls the other station to be like, what the hell? When I came here, you said that the emergency calls were going to be rerouted. And they're like, oh, it was supposed to happen. We'll look into it.
Yeah. That sounds like a usual cop response.
Yeah. Oh, we thought it was going to happen.
We thought it was going to happen. We'll write a report.
And she hears some banging from down the hall, and she goes to investigate. And we get another one of those really stylish clock close-ups. And we see that, as far as we can tell, it's now 10 p.m. So 2 hours later. Long nap for her.
On the first night of her first shift. Cool.
Yeah.
Oh, we'll just let that pass.
Yeah, you get one.
Yeah, you get one.
And she doesn't see anything. She sits down to eat, and she pulls just this huge hair out of her throat. It's way longer than her hair. It triggers her like gag reflex too, so she like kind of like throws up a little bit. It's a gross scene right there.
So gross.
Oh man. Plus, I'll be honest, there are some people who are like, oh, it's a hair in my food, no big deal. And like to an extent, I've had to learn to live with it because I have cats, but I am still like, oh God, a fucking hair in my food. Get this out of here.
Just get this. I found my own hair in a salad I made, and I was just like, knowing it was my own hair because I made the salad, it would still I threw the whole salad away. Hey, it's my hair.
It's tough out there. Yeah,
it's tough out there.
Who knows what's happening? You can't see on top of your head.
I can't see on top of my head. I don't know if I'm in Juon. I don't know what's going on. I may have fallen asleep. This may all be a dream. I might wake up tomorrow and there was no pandemic.
Oh my God.
You guys.
You didn't know I was asleep the whole time?
No one said anything.
It's great though. It's another sort of like classic thing, and there's more knocking. Just random noise is so effective at just being unsettling. We're like, I got to see it. I need to see what's making this noise.
Yeah.
And she doesn't see anyone at the door because it's like a genuine knocking, and there's no one there. But she finds an unhoused guy in the hallway. And like this dude is grody. He's got like lesions on his feet, and he pees on the floor, and it's gross. It's more gross stuff. And she forces him to leave. And one thing I really like about this movie so far is that it keeps doing this long, lingering hold on the hallway to the holding cells. It's so simple, but it's so effective. You get like this slow, shaky zoom and some spooky score. It's just a nice like reminder of, oh, you haven't seen anything yet.
Yeah, it's a red herring without being an overt red herring. We already know there's some shit going on inside this building, but we don't know the layout of the building, right? So we don't really know. Like we get that like arbitrary showing around shit from that creepy guy, the creepy police chief, but we don't really know like what's behind everything because he to me was an unreliable character, narrator. Rather like he seemed high. If she hadn't fallen asleep, and he may have been a figment of whatever imagination she dreamed up.
Absolutely. And because of that, this next sort of couple scenes are her kind of exploring the police station, which that sense of discovery is beneficial to us as well, where we get to feel like we're exploring it with her.
Right.
And her first step, she hits the bathroom, which is disgusting. Layer of filth on everything. It's truly, this might be the most horrific thing in the movie. It's just how nasty this bathroom is.
I haven't seen a bathroom that disgusting since Candyman.
Yeah.
Like, that was a disgusting, and that was a pretty fucking filthy bathroom.
The bar is high. The bar is high. Yeah.
You will have to do an episode on nastiest bathrooms in horror, by the way.
That'll be a bonus set. We'll rank them. Top 5 grossest bathrooms in horror history. Exactly. Number 1 with a bullet. Candyman. Disgusting. I think it's funny though that that kind of is the scare of that room. Like they're like nothing else happens in it, and
100%.
You're just like, oh, that's really gross, but I'm still like in the realm of like reality still. Yeah. It's just a realistic gross thing.
I was anticipating a shit monster.
Your classic Dogma situation?
Yeah, my classic Dogma situation. I was like, wow. Oh, but no, we didn't get that.
Not enough of them. For my money, not enough shit monsters in horror these days.
Oh, man.
Next stop, locker room. And this is where things really start to get interesting because she finds a picture of her and her dad. Yeah. And you're like, oh, that's cute and definitely not ominous as hell.
I knew it as soon as I saw it. I was like, oh no.
Yeah, big mistake to find any family heirlooms in a horror movie.
In a supposedly empty building in a horror film. Okay,
yeah, definitely. And while she's distracted looking at it, every locker door opens. Again, so simple, but so effective. The hairs on my arms stood up. It's such a great, immediate cut to a wider angle of it. And just looks so good, so simple. Look, I mean, that's how you keep the budget low, is you utilize these sort of tried and true effects that can be done in camera. You don't have to go back and retouch things up.
Exactly. And having it be spooky, right?
Yeah.
We didn't need like that. That was the jump scare, right? Like we didn't need it, that was just spooky as hell. Yeah. Especially since she's the only person there, so not hearing anything, any of that, and it just ambient silence. Again, super.
It does
effective.
the work. It does the
work. Yeah.
And she gets called back. Same girl. She says her name is Monica, and that they took her to a ranch with pigs before hanging up again. And you're like, oh, all right, scary again. But you get no time to rest.
Right.
Because there's another call right away. And things are really starting to heat up here because this is Hazmat saying that they're running behind and that they don't know when they're going to show up. So, perfect setup.
But is it Hazmat? But is it Hazmat?
Who even knows? Is it? It's such a perfect set. Like I said, that ambiguity being established right up top does so much to have this sort of to carry you through the rest of the movie and just keep you questioning everything.
Yeah, and I always wonder, and this is probably too early to even have this discussion, and we can talk about it more at the end, if this is like a way for her to process her grief.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Definitely.
if this was an exercise in the grief process for her. But we can come back onto that one.
Definitely. I mean, we'll definitely get to it because I think that it's a very good point is all I'll say right now.
Okay, good. Good.
So Lauren is jumpy and shelves are moving around behind her. And as she jumps up, she hears more noise from down the hall. And she finds the door open and there's like a mess there leading to outside. And so she's like, again, there's sort of this realm of reality where you're like, is this something supernatural? Is this just someone who broke in? She calls it in as a B&E. Yeah. But she just gets a garbled come again back on the radio. And oh man, when I heard that, I was like, no. It was so scary. It was like, it just, you don't know what's actually happening.
Yes.
And it's so
And how
great.
many films do that these days?
Not a lot.
Not a lot of like, I don't, it's just, again, what I was saying is like that high art horror this is by no means this I don't think this movie was designed to be like, you know, in the Ari Asters of the world, but I think it was definitely designed to be smarter than your average horror film. And I just the amount of time in such a short confined amount of time that he takes us through every possible not only trope but like what could be absolutely happening is fantastic.
When you think about the time that this movie came out, it was showing in festivals in 2014 for a 2015 release. Like, this is sort of at the beginning of that transition into this sort of Ari Aster, Robert Eggers kind of horror. Yeah. And so it's sort of interesting to look at as like a transitory period. It's kind of like the Neanderthal between Australopithecus and Homo sapiens.
Exactly. Whoa! Whoa. Maybe you're right. In our world, maybe you're right. Absolutely. I think everybody had just gotten tired of spending money on things that weren't, you pull out things out of the legacy, you know, New Line getting bought by Warner. Like, you know, you start just going to the library. What can we do? You know, Scream 4, whatever. You know, you're just looking through things. And I think the diminishing returns on film, on those type of films, and especially the advent of television horror, Walking Dead, Black Mirror, like it was people were doing it better for less in shorter amount of times. You had to start giving it a little bit more high art.
Absolutely, you do. And I think your point is absolutely correct about TV sort of forcing the hand of movies in terms of what they're doing and what audiences were clearly gravitating towards.
Yep, absolutely.
And one other thing that I forgot to mention from within the call is that the other station from after Monica's second call said that Monica isn't calling 911. They're like, if she's calling you, she's calling directly to that station. And this is just more fuel for the what's actually going on fire. It's just like the perfect touch to be like, oh, like, no, we're not even seeing that call come in. And even though you're like, okay, things are starting to escalate.
Yeah.
It manages to even supersede that and jump to 11 real quick when singing starts and the lights go out and a siren blares and you're just like, fuck, it's happening.
We are deep in the well now. Yeah. We're in the bell jar.
She stumbles across the guy from before, definitely not who was singing, I might add. Right. And she hits him with a nightstick before cuffing him and taking him to a holding cell. Not exactly gently either. Like, this dude he's messed up in some way, and she is pretty brusque with him, is all I'll say, in terms of the way that she handles it. But you're also like, she's scared. You know, she doesn't know what's going on. She already told this guy to leave. Yeah. You're sort of like, maybe she's being a little aggressive, but also, like, I also get it. Like, you understand why she's on edge right now. Right. To put it mildly.
Yeah, no. I mean, this guy, she thinks this guy might be the cause of, I think, you know, she probably thinks this guy might be the cause of. Yeah. Exactly. Like, you know, like, trying to deduce like what is actually happening, and maybe I can, if the one thing I can contain and can control is putting this guy in this holding cell.
It turns out that's not the case though, because as she's dragging him in, the door closes and locks behind her, and there's a woman screaming, and the lights go out again, and the guy rushes her, and she has to, like, tase him. This is, like, a really intense action scene in the middle of this horror movie. And
holy shit.
She goes to the door to see what's going on and to say, open the door. And this is, I think, a really great performance. This is sort of the first indication of how great this performance is going to be, because she's trying so hard to keep her cool, but she's letting the tension kind of creep into her voice.
Yep.
This was definitely the first scene where I was like, oh, okay, she's really bringing it for this role.
Yeah. And you can tell that, like, voice quivers a little bit, but she's, again, and as a chick myself, a female, I have to think about being a strong female in these scenarios. And it's like, you know, you don't want to look like you don't have this, like, I've got this. Like, she walked in there like, I got this. And the idea that she doesn't have this, and this, how embarrassing this will be if it comes out that I locked myself in the holding cell in an empty building on my first night of the last, you know, I can see all of those were going through my mind too, in addition to that other layer of horror.
Sure. Especially in a job that is as bereft with good old boys and sort of that boys club exclusion, where women in those positions tend to have to work twice as hard, because 100%. If they don't manage to meet what the bar is, then they're all like, oh, this is all women, not just this one person.
Exactly.
Police work, I think, has a lot of that. And you add that on top of sort of this legacy that she has to live up to.
Exactly.
There's a lot of baggage involved with her sort of facade of strength there.
Exactly.
A person who is like, if Baghead Jason from Friday the 13th Part 2 was crossed with a Silent Hill enemy, this dude is just grotesque. Pops up, surprises her, surprises me. I'll tell you that for free. He shows
Were
up.
You scared, George?
He got me. He got me good. And, I mean, he just shows up in the window and she drops her flashlight. Man, and I was like, yeah, I get it. I understand. I would have dropped my shit too.
It was horrific.
Yeah.
I definitely was like, ooh.
So that was outside the door, but inside the door, there's like these whispered, like, fucked up taunts at her. And then there's a flash of two of the fucked up bag faces behind her. And then the lights come on and the door opens and no one's there. And you're just like, come on.
And it's her immediate reaction is that it's not, okay, so this was like, somebody just locked my ass in here. Yeah. Who's in here?
Somebody. Yeah.
I just remember she's just like the immediate notion that this was incidental, but not like supernatural.
It's pretty wild, but she's again trying to sort of keep her cool. She recites like this police officer's mantra. I assume it's part of the oath that they take.
Yeah.
Probably could have looked it up, but I didn't. And this isn't the first time that we've seen her sort of resort to this to sort of maintain some calm, act as a focus, something for her to keep her mind on. And she calls over to report what happened after some deliberation, but she backs down on it because, again, she's clearly unwilling to give the impression that she can't handle this job.
Yeah.
You're like, is it that devotion to the oath that she took, her father, living up to her legacy, or to his legacy? So much is wrapped up in the emotions of this movie that they've established it so quickly too. I think really impressive.
I think it's interesting considering that this was 2014 for 2015 release. Where it was made was Sanford, Florida, which is where Trayvon Martin was killed. So we'd already been in the midst of this. Now it's an us and them type scenario when it comes to cop, more than ever, right? Like more than, it's always been lingering and sort of bubbling under, but now more than ever, there's this,
it's in the news. The focus is on it.
Exactly. So it's just interesting the take on training the focus on a female officer, knowing everything like you had mentioned earlier that goes on inside of these organizations, the thin blue line and all of that, even within her role and what she has legacy, her father, decorated hero, he saved a bunch of lives. She still doesn't feel comfortable showing weakness because of this overarching scenario that permeates, police departments.
Absolutely. And it sucks. That sucks.
Yeah.
That's the case.
That's all I got. I ain't got that's it. That's about as much sympathy as I can offer at this point.
Yeah. But yeah, so she looks up and she sees the word sow written in blood, which is a female pig. Pigs as cops. There you go. Nice little A to C. And she goes to recheck the locks, and she finds someone just chilling outside.
Yeah.
This person introduces herself as Marigold, and she tells Lauren that she was in one of the cells when the police arrested a quote-unquote wannabe Manson family led by John Michael Paymon, which is where her father was killed, was getting this cult member.
Right.
So she's like, I have this inside scoop. I was there when it happened, and the story that is wrong. The details were never made public, and there was this sort of idea that the cult had been killed at the scene.
Right.
But what actually happened, according to Marigold, is they hanged themselves at the station 1 year ago to the day, and that even though the bodies were gone, pure evil covered the walls. And I was like, this is some Halloween Donald Pleasance ass shit where he's like, pure evil.
And I love that it's just this chick who is, I think she was a sex worker.
Probably.
And she was
seemed that way.
Seemed that way. And she just was like, I love how she's like the Donald Pleasance character, if you were. She's the twist. She's like, she came. But that was like some information that shifted that basically shifts the entire film. I mean, the film at this point kind of goes full tilt.
Absolutely, because now you're like, okay, I understand sort of the context of the paranormal things that are happening here.
Right.
It gives you a little bit of a foundation to start building ideas off of.
Right.
And it's the pacing of how they drop this information, I think, is done so well throughout the whole thing.
So well. And again, I keep talking about the time because it's a short film, right?
Yeah.
So like the way they jam in scares, tropes, everything, and then these little bits of information is just perfectly timed. She doesn't get a minute to that nap was the last time she had a chance to rest in this film.
I mean, even though she gets this information dump, Marigold still gets to deliver a scare as well, because as she walks away, she starts humming the song that Lauren heard earlier in the hallway, and you're like, oh my, like, how, like, is she involved? What's the deal? Just so stoking those flames of what's going on.
And she closes the door, she closes that door and locks that bitch back up.
Yeah, it's great. And Lauren heads inside, and she finds 3 staticky TVs, which sharpen into interrogation footage of the cult leader and 2 followers. Right. And she gets, like, entranced by it. And we, fall into these, like, swirling flashbacks, kind of. It's like it's sort of like they're on the TV screen, but also like we're there, and it's really creepy. I mean, the cult members do cult member things. One of them slams her face on the table and breaks her nose, and it's shocking. And the flashbacks also reveal some more information. They're not just scares. They're pulling double duty here, which is important because they reveal that the cult worships the king of hell, also named Paimon, like the cult leader. And so that's how they sort of tie it, where they're like, it was meant to be, that's his name, it's the king of hell. It was also doing it before Hereditary, so Ari Aster biting his style, clearly.
Completely biting his style. That Paimon gets around, man, I tell you.
Yeah, he's like, oh, sure, I'll be in your movie. And they also make reference to a family being back at the ranch, connecting it to the calls from before, where she's like, oh, there were people here who invaded our house. And you start, even before Lauren starts to connect those dots, we as an audience start to be like, oh, the stuff from earlier, those calls might not be all that they seemed, even though they were already scary.
Yeah.
Everything is doing work to set up later payoffs, which is something that I really admire in terms of sort of economy of dialogue and action and everything.
I also thought cult subplots are so, it's done, it's been done. Everybody, from well into the dawn of cinema, cults, the representation of cults in film, sometimes are hokey. I feel like this was very true to that, like, Manson-esque sort of, we don't know fully like what Manson was telling, like what it was inside. We only have sort of like reports and unreliable narrators all over the place. So this was like the first time I've seen like a really great representation that was not Manson of just how brain fucked these people become and how trying to get information out of them is just virtually impossible.
Right. And that sort of air about them is part of why it was so difficult to get those reports of what the Manson family was like, because they're all so drugged out and everything that even first person accounts are a little shaky in terms of what's true and what's not. So
100%. And I think about like not a horror film, but Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Again, I'd never seen like a representation of them as just these burnouts marauding right all over.
I mean,
California.
That scene was a pretty good horror movie, if you ask me. That one scene.
Yeah, that one scene, though. Oh, jeez.
It's great. It's really great. But this movie does a great job of capturing that vibe. You're absolutely correct. Yeah. And before the three of them commit mass suicide, Paimon threatens to come back and destroy everybody. And it's very creepy, especially when the chairs start spinning around and sometimes they have the girls' bodies in them and the video keeps saying, I like you. And I'm just like totally on edge at this point, so freaked out. It's great. This is that atmosphere that they're working so hard to develop, but it's so useful in terms of, I mean, on its head, this is just some chairs spinning around and some dialogue, but because the atmosphere is so thick, it's absolutely horrifying in this moment because they've worked so hard to develop that.
Here's one thing that I think is interesting in that most films, right, horror films, if there's a creepy noise outside, you have options to not check on it. As a police officer, she has no choice.
Right.
She has to investigate every single thing that goes down. She literally has to, that one room off to the side where stuff was being weird or the lights were, she has to go check that out. She has to know what's going on. So that already is a great hook that can give us a layer of believability because we know that she has no choice but to see every single element of whatever is happening through.
Right. It takes away that option of people questioning it and being like, well, why isn't she leaving?
Yes.
I wouldn't stay around. And it's like, well, she has to. Like, she literally is locked in there. Like, it's her first day. There's so much that has led to this point where it's never in doubt why she's going to check these things out, which is, I think, super important. And she gets another call from Monica at this point. And one thing that I really love about horror is And I think it's relatively unique. I talked about this a little bit on the recent Get Out episode as well, because it does some cool work there. The camera in horror, I think, is uniquely situated to do character work in terms of using reveals while paired with the dialogue or music or something to sort of inform the character that we're looking at or their perspective or whatever. And the camera here does some really great character work, because despite the calm exterior that Lauren is presenting to Monica on the phone, because she's like, okay, I'm in 911 mode, the camera itself is wobbling around and getting a little unhinged, and it's sort of able to communicate her emotional state underneath the exterior in a way that is just not feasible in most other genres.
Yeah. And I think the angle, that particular angle where she's at the sort of the command desk, that lends itself to also being really frightening, because that door behind her has got to stay open. She's got these windows where it's just at eye level when she's sitting down. So anything could be hiding. And then there's that one hallway off to the side that's just completely darked out and inclusive of the one behind her. She's just, it creates like this. She's in even the confined space she's in gets smaller.
Backed into a corner,
Backed into a corner when she gets to, because that's the only central place. That phone and being able to look at that exit, those are her only, that's the only way. Right?
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
And, you know what I mean? So like everything else around her is falling apart, but this is sort of like that safe space.
Yeah. And it's interesting too, because it sort of is like a catch-22, because when you're in that corner, you're like, well, I have the walls here. Ostensibly, nothing can get me. I have this little bit of safety here.
Right.
But because it is so removed from the rest of it, it's really, she can't see anything coming. So by the time it gets there where that safety would be an issue, it's already right in your face.
Exactly.
Really cool stuff. Really cool stuff. And she hears whistling, and she has to go investigate again.
Yeah.
And you get some more classic paranormal jazz, like chairs rearranging themselves. And this is, again, because this is one of the more grounded stunts here, she starts to think it's like a hazing ritual.
Right.
And this is interesting because we start to question her mental state in terms of, like, is she just ignoring the delusions or hallucinations or whatever that she just saw? Because she also ignored the face of the other person popping up, and you're like, does she have like a history of visual hallucinations or something? Like,
or is it trauma? Is she you know, loss of a parent, that triggers trauma.
Just packing it in. She's just like, shove it down. I have to just do it, and really start to be like, oh, something might be wrong with Lauren here. It might not just be scares here.
Yeah.
Like, something's up with her. And she, like I said, she starts to think it's a hazing ritual, and perfect moment for Ryan Price, fellow police officer, to arrive at the station, of course, just as she's thinking this. And she says, of course, it was you who planned all this. Like, oh, haha, was it just you, or is the whole team in on it? And he's confused, and he insists that he came by to check up on her. And he's like, oh, I knew your father, and that's why I came here to look in on you. And we're like, okay, finally, a sympathetic figure.
Thank God. Thank God. I'm so calmed by this. And then I started even thinking there might be, obviously, like there's a slight flirtation, very slight, and you know.
Certainly they have some chemistry at the very least. And you're just like, is this going to be like a subplot that they're going to force in? Yeah. Certainly you are not anticipating the way that it shakes out to be the way that it shakes out, because he confirms that the cult, like, he confirms the information from before about the cult being captured alive. And he says, your father would be proud of you, which is obviously huge for her. This is big news. But as he leaves, he turns around, and Lauren sees a bullet wound gaping in the back of his head.
His brain is completely missing.
Completely gone, and he just disappears around the corner. What a great moment. I totally took me by surprise, because they play up that sort of chemistry, and you're like, oh, is this going to be like a romance that they try and shove in here? Totally took me by surprise. Was not expecting him to be a fucking freaky ass blown out head ghost.
I was once I saw that, I literally in my head I was like, "Oh my god!" I rewound it, George.
Me too.
Because I was like, because I don't know if I was like eating something or drinking something because I was literally like, oh my god, oh did I miss any inkling
any
that
indication,
this guy
any
indication, and there's a zero indication this guy's a full on ghost.
Yeah.
Zero.
And she's never behind him either.
No.
So like there's never any moments where you're like, oh, she would have seen the head wound.
No.
He's constantly behind her and just it's done so well to keep you in the dark on it.
I mean, the wheels completely fall off this beast.
We're off the rails, folks.
We're off the rails, folks. I was just like, I still think about that. That's why I was so glad when I recommended this that you chose that, because I thought back to that scene and you not having seen it yet, and I was like, Terrifier.
That's the one.
I was like, Last Shift. Yeah, Last Shift's great.
It really is. And this moment is so effective. And as she runs out there to check on him, you get some more fun cinematography where the camera's doing some, check on him.
Are you okay?
See if he's there even. He just vanishes.
Right.
And the camera swings around and she's hearing voices and she starts seeing visions. And this is one that I really liked, where again, it's sort of wearing that influence on its sleeve, where the body getting dragged down the hall looked a lot like the scene in Nightmare on Elm Street where the corpse in the body bag is getting dragged down the school hallway.
Yes.
Very cool. But the piece de resistance, the scariest moment for me, I'm going to reveal it right now, is...
Oh, wow.
She finds this group of cultists singing in the locker room in a circle. And when they turn, the reflection stays the same, but their faces move and are bagged and bloody, and that just about made me shit my pants.
That was so fucking scary. I was still reeling from Officer Price.
Yeah.
So at this point, I'm just like, get the fuck out. I know you can't leave, but get the fuck out anyway.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, again, sort of calling back to that Hereditary, Ari, you have a lot to answer for, where the kid's reflection when he's at school sort of does this same sort of thing.
Yeah.
And it's just so effective here. It really scared me.
Yeah. It was really, it just, and that's not even, God, we're not even probably an hour at this point.
No, I don't think we are. I think we're probably coming up on it, but I don't think we've hit the hour mark yet.
Yeah. I mean, that's again 1 hour of just solid, like absolute batshit craziness.
Yeah, and this is finally the moment where Lauren calls Cohen, and she's like, I can't do this. And she reconsiders, not only because he threatens to fire her, but also he threatens her devotion by being like, oh, apples fall pretty far from the tree, I guess. And like the sort of like impugning her honor and her father's reputation is seemingly much more effective in getting her to stay than just being like, oh, I'm going to fire you.
Right. And I feel like, that is sort of reminding us, it'd been a while since we kind of had that human reminder that this is, that she's in, we're getting a lot of, the paranormal, the finding of the picture, the blown out head cop, that I knew your dad, this thing happened that ties back to the case that her father, died on. It's been a while since we've had somebody that was just like, this is your job and you need to be doing this. So I'm sorry if it's haunted. Yeah. Is Hazmat there yet? No?
Yeah,
okay.
seriously.
Call me when that happens. Okay, bye. Like, that sort of thing.
Yeah, he's not having it. And she hangs up, and again, you get another phone call, no time to rest, and Monica says that she escaped, but that they're chasing her.
Yeah.
And then the line goes dead. And Lauren calls the dispatcher back, but he tells Lauren that Monica was the final victim of Paymon's cult all those years. Oh, not all those. 1 year ago.
Yeah.
Like it just all snaps into focus where you're like, is this a fucked up prank? Is it a ghost? Like, again, even when you get answers, it sort of opens up more possibilities. It just keeps you so invested in despite the fact that it is providing these answers, which it needs to do.
Right. And, there is still like some ambiguity about just like where this is going to lead to. Does this all culminate back in the station? Is this an opportunity for her to leave the station?
Right.
Like, you don't know like where this is going to lead to. This reveal.
Yeah, especially since the dispatcher kind of alludes to the fact that maybe the police know that it's haunted. He's like, oh, it's not just the rusty pipes that made us leave. Like, like, okay, guy. Like,
this is starting to be a problem. Long story short.
Like no warning or anything for poor Lauren here.
No.
But she hangs up because she finds a photo of her dad shot on the floor. Like, she notices that out of the corner of her eye, and she hangs up on the dispatcher. And as she goes to check it out, she finds several other evidence photos, including Officer Price with his head blown out.
Yeah.
So again, sort of confirms that he's dead, and there's sort of like, well, where is this coming from? Mm-hmm. They said all the evidence was removed and everything.
Yeah.
The pictures increase and get organized. And when they finally are like laying out in a grid, for some reason that was so much scarier to me than when they were just in a pile there. Yeah. It's spectacular. And the lights flicker and her head starts to hurt and she passes out again. And not ideal. Not an ideal situation.
Nope. Wrong move, wrong time.
And so there's, again, this like, was she asleep before? Is this really her passing out? Could this be her waking up, really? Like, all of the dream rules are sort of in effect, where you're like, I don't really know how much I can trust what I'm being shown here because of that unreliable narrator aspect that's in effect here. Which
is interesting because now we're even more fucked up than she is for seeing it, right? So we're experiencing it, and thought we were, able to sort of follow along, and now we're in this world. We're getting pulled into this world with her.
Exactly. And she wakes up. The photos are gone, and her phone is ringing, and it's her mom, and she's like, oh, I understand why you wanted to do this, and like the very like casual conversation considering what's been happening, and in this moment she sees someone moving, and she goes to confront them, but they bop her on the head, and they take her to an interrogation room, and they reveal that they're a living member of the Paimon cult. Yeah. And there's a really important line here that she says that I really want to call out, where she says, if crazy is being devoted to something you love, then I'm as crazy as a slimy snail in a tin can. Which, obviously, aside from the sort of folksy idiom it's buried in, I think really sort of captures the sort of theme of this movie in terms of that, like, devotion and how far is too much and how far are you willing to go for that devotion. It really sort of lines up and draws a parallel line between Lauren and her father and these cultists with John Paimon.
It also could be sort of also seen, and you already said this, but I feel like it's also seen as she's going crazy in this place that's slimy to her. Right. She's the cult member, and you busted up my family. Right. You were like, but this was my family. You busted up. You made us, go to that next level. You made us push us to that very edge. You're just as crazy as I am. So I definitely love when she says that.
Yeah, it's really great. And she says that she again confirms that this is the 1-year anniversary, and she says that she's here to celebrate it, and then pulls the trigger on herself, which I thought is a really shocking moment. Yeah. It feels like they're setting up to sort of be this like, oh God, here we go, sort of like torture porn, like what are we going to see here? And again, they pull the carpet out from under you. They subvert that expectation in a way that is very positive to me. Right. That we don't just see this young woman getting tortured there. Right. And the phone is going just berserk. Yeah. And it's like rattling off the desk, and Lauren gets this. She answers the call, and it's from Monica, in quotes, who starts to laugh when Lauren says that she's dead. And Monica then appears under the desk, not looking her best.
You're just reminding me of so many times I forgot of these things.
It's awful. It's really awful. She's awful. Crawling around on all fours. She's grody. All of the things that like the cult members had been talking about before, where she was like, "Oh, I smashed her teeth up into her forehead," and like when you see her, like her face is so beaten to a pulp, and it's like rotted. And speaking of American Werewolf in London, rotted people showing up randomly. This is it. Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
She sort of stalks Lauren around for a little bit, and I mean, good Lord, it's so scary. She's not even really being too aggressive. It doesn't seem like she's trying to kill her, but she's just so horrendously grotesque that you get this visceral reaction, this repulsion that you're like, oh, I just get this away.
Yeah. And I always think of I think at this point I remember thinking God, how much more?
Yeah.
How much more?
Yeah, it can't be that much because they keep escalating, and you're at some point I can't get more scared.
Yeah.
So you're all right, I'm coming. We must be coming up on it. And one thing I really like is that they do keep utilizing different sorts of scares, even though a lot of them are sort of these surprise things aren't the way that you left them. They don't all feel like the same jump scare that's getting repeated over and over.
Exactly.
Which is, again, crucial to something like this, because it's so easy to just be like, all right, here's something popping into frame and some creepy music. This really, it changes things up, and it isn't just focusing on the element of surprise, especially with scenes like this where you really get to linger on the makeup and see how she looks and how awful it is.
Yes.
Which is great. I think
there's a film that tried to do this, and we all went to see it because it came out and we wanted it to be great. And it's House on Haunted Hill. House on Haunted Hill ended up being goofy. Right? Yeah. It had the chance to do the same thing this film did, which is, provide really great different types of scares. Right? Different, quality of scares. And it just ends up being goofy. And this is one thing about this film. It is not goofy.
See, that's the thing. It feels like a modern haunted house movie in a really interesting way. It feels like you walk and each room kind of provides a different scare, and each one is unique, and you kind of just follow her going through the tour.
Yeah. And that area was safe, right? Remember, that area was the safe space. And now that area is no longer the safe space anymore. That area is just completely a hot fucking mess.
Exactly. And because of that lack of safety, that last vestige that she felt she had, she tries to leave in this moment when Monica vanishes. And she tries to leave, door won't open. She starts shooting at it. The glass doesn't break or anything when it's shot. Yeah. And she gets another phone call on her cell phone, and it's her dead dad.
That was it. That was just too far. Too far, Anthony. Too far.
It's so effective too, because he starts out praising her, and he's like, "Oh, you're just like me, and I'm glad you did it for me." And again, it sort of feels like this cultist getting lured in by someone with this charisma. Yeah. And it takes that next step when he demands justice for his death.
Right.
And you're like, oh, this is exactly like that. She's being led down this path of corruption.
Yeah.
And he demands the justice, and the line goes dead, and there's motion behind her. And she thinks it's the guy from the holding cells. And she goes to rearrest him. But as she's doing that, he instantly changes position, and his head is all jacked up, and it's bloated, and the lights go out, and he vanishes. And it's, again, just unrelenting, just scare after scare after scare.
Yeah.
And she goes to check that holding cell, and she finds him in there and hanged with blood coating the interior window and cult writing all over the wall. Just, it's so intense.
It's just so intense.
And things for her sort of get fuzzy because her radio starts to leak blood as she calls for help. And you're like, again, is this that is she passed out? Is this all in her head? What's happening? More of these like visions of the cult members who look like they're from Silent Hill. They show up, and the death of the 3 that had killed themselves before, like they come out of the vision and they're demonic. And she sees Officer Price again, who mimes killing himself, and the blood shoots out, and it's overwhelming in a way that's clearly intended. It's supposed to sort of like shut you down, make you retreat inward the way that she is clearly doing as well.
Right.
Curious if this is a scene that you enjoy in terms of that tension really kind of coming to a head, or if it gets to be too much sometimes.
No, I don't think anything can be too much in horror. I think, you know, the way this film does scares, horror, gore, all of it is perfect because, again, the time. The time is so short that the hits keep coming. You're stimulated. You don't have time to even really recover. Hence why I rewound the Officer Price scene, because I'm still I needed a minute to go back and didn't see what exactly did I see. What I just saw was that what just happened.
Because it's moving so quick,
Because it's moving so quick. And I recall the same thing with Hereditary, where we go from the house party with her brother, and then we get in the car, anaphylactic shock, head missing. Yeah. And then home, and
all those classic hits.
All those classic hits. And I just feel like... I just feel like, I rewatch things a lot because it's like just the pacing. It's a symphony. And this is what this film is. It's quite the symphony. Because
it's crescendoing,
It's crescendoing because it's just, from the very beginning, you have your mind set that it's going to be one thing. And it doesn't give you a second to breathe.
Absolutely. I think you're totally right in terms of it feeling very deliberate that it does come to a head like this, and that it is crescendoing this way. Yeah. Because a lot of movies where it does sometimes feel like it's overstimulating, it feels that way just as a byproduct of them just throwing the kitchen sink.
Right.
And with this, it feels very much like things had led to this moment instead of just being like, all right, what do we have left? And it's great. She, like I said, she retreats inward. She starts repeating the oath again. And she gets another call from her father, who warns her that the cult members are assaulting the station. And she goes on this little mini rampage, killing all of these cult members who are coming in, and they are taunting her and stuff. And you're, as far as we're concerned, we're like, oh, this is for real. But as she shoots the last one, Officer Cohen appears and shoots her from behind. And you get this great moment of clarity here where she realizes, and we realize at the same exact time, that she has just murdered the hazmat team that showed up. Ugh. Good gracious. And you get one last shot of the clock as it hits the end of the shift, and you're, wow. It took me by such surprise. It's so effective. What a great reveal. What do you think about it?
I was bummed, I'll be honest with you, because I really, really, really wanted her to be closing that loop, because I'm a daddy's girl, and I just wanted it to be like representing daddy, like getting rid of all the baddies. You know what I mean? But I kind of have to tell you, I knew something was amiss when Officer Price returns and mimics shooting himself in the head. Yeah. That led me to think that he clearly was repenting for something. I don't think it was a cult member that did it. Something clearly happened in whatever. We'll never know. But there was something just amiss about that. I was completely comfortable with the fact that maybe one of the cult members caught him and, did whatever, but something happened there that led him to kill himself. Yeah. Which means he was taunting. He was in on the taunting as well.
It's a very subtle sort of, hey, even the things that were already crazy might not have been the way that they seemed.
Right. Exactly. And I was just bummed. Like when I saw it, I was like, oh, girl. You did so well. You were so heroic all night, and goddamn.
And it turns out She was just going on a rampage.
Just going on a rampage. Your garden variety rampage.
And so Cohen calls for medical assistance, but you get one last creepy scare as Lauren starts singing the cult song, and the cult members sort of, like the spirits sort of appear and start walking towards her. And even this reveal that it was all fake, you're like, well, was it fake? Like, here they are again. Like, are they leading her towards this sort of damnation?
Yeah.
Just
this building is a piece
ending.
of shit.
Yeah.
This building is just a piece of shit.
Yeah, it's. I think that I definitely understand that being bummed about like this character that you've sort of gotten behind having that rug pulled out. But I loved this ending. I thought that it was really fantastic, and the way that they do keep that ambiguity going at the end, where you're like, oh man, they still showed up again. I thought that was a great sort of cherry on top in terms of you could still kind of go whatever way you wanted with your interpretation.
Right. And I always think about like Talented Mr. Ripley, which I guess you can call a psychological thriller. But I always think about how every twist and turn for Tom Ripley, ultimately he just finds a way to bail himself out. Right. Even to the very end, when he's up literally in a corner up against the wall, finds a way to bail himself out. And that is probably what I was anticipating in this scene, like a savior moment. And it just was
not
dark.
The case.
It's not the case. Didn't work out for Lauren.
No, certainly did not. And I have one more quote here from Anthony where I talked to him about sort of what he was looking to explore with this movie and what he sort of thought about the themes. And you basically hit the nail on the head where he said, to me, Last Shift is all about devotion. And it's explored through the blind devotion we see in John Michael's followers and the familial devotion we see with Jessica. Most scary stories have that element of, why does our protagonist stick around? And I wanted to explore devotion being that reason. Her sense of duty to her father's memory and to her job, which is tied directly to getting approval from her dead father, even if her mother is telling her that the choice she's making isn't good for her state of mind. So no matter how scared she becomes, that sense of devotion to her father, of doing the right thing, and that fear of looking weak, these elements bring her back to toughen up and to fight it out no matter what's happening.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a really interesting thing to explore in a horror movie, because he's absolutely right. So often we're like, why are they still here? What is holding them here?
Right. If it's not a paranormal force, it's got to be something else.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And so with that, Wynter, we've now reached the point of the podcast where we each sum up why this is the best horror movie ever made. And so I'll let you start things off.
I think this is the best horror movie ever made because in the time that it was created, 2014, we didn't know what we were about to embark upon. No one knew what was the next end of that decade was going to be like. And that's, politically, pop culturally, and especially in the genre of horror, we had no idea what we were going to push towards. And this film sort of looks like an inflection point. It looks like the past in terms of like the type of horror, the gore, that just really overt horror, that really just gruesome. Every kill is worse than the next. Hi, Kitty.
This is Buck.
Hi, Buck. I can tell you saw he was coming. He's coming.
I was trying to hold him off, and it just wasn't happening. Come on, pal. All right.
That's so funny. You couldn't tell what was gonna come in this film, and the fact that it's an inflection point in the sense that it was in the past, we had really crazy gore and horror, we had really original storytelling because things hadn't been done before, and then we're going into the future where we're doing things on a different scale, utilizing sort of like the elements of tropes that we love, a little bit of found footage, a little bit of this, that, and the other, a little bit of psychological horror. And I think that it was able to combine tropes without leaning too heavily on one or the other. And I also think that it was able to honor the people that came before us, the Carpenters, the Cravens, all of those horror masters, those masters of horrors, even the Giallos, and it was able to pull it all together in a tight little package that kept you wanting more and kept you guessing. I feel like horror, it is very, very hard to do that. Usually movies that are 97 minutes, 87 minutes are full of just like easy gotchas. You know, jump scares, really poor CGI, not well thought out characters, not a lot of character development.
Yeah, they feel like cash grabs usually.
They feel like cash grabs. And this was all contained in one space. I mean, he really nailed it and got it. I've never seen a movie like this before, yet I've seen a movie like this before. This is just the best version of that movie.
Yeah, I totally agree. To me, this is the best horror movie ever made because it is both innovative and pays homage to the things that came before. Like you said, it does so much with so little. The fact that it was made for $150,000 is mind-boggling.
Mind-boggling.
It looks so good for a movie with much bigger budget, never mind that budget. And the fact that Juliana Harkavy is able to sort of not only carry the movie and the burden of being the character perspective the whole time, but she's able to realistically escalate her reactions, which is also important because if she is terrified from the word go, then there's nowhere to build to. Yeah. And she does such a great job of letting it trickle out in a great pace. And all of these things, plus the fact that it does have that ambiguity that I love, and it manages to sort of keep you guessing the whole time while delivering these scares. To me, that's why this is the best horror movie ever made. Wynter, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show. This was absolutely a blast. And please tell the people where they can find you, because you got to get more great pop culture critiques from Wynter.
I'm at Wynter, Wynter Mitchell, Mitchell on Twitter. That's where you'll find me. I hang out there all day like the Matthew McConaughey character in Dazed and Confused. That's just my post. Yeah. I love just commenting. Yeah. And I love engaging with people. You get older,
but the tweets stay the same.
Exactly. Exactly. This was so fun, George. This is great.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, as far as my plugs, same thing. Little Horror PHL on Twitter. You can find most of the stuff there. If you're looking for merch, you can go to littlehorrorphl.com, and there is links and stuff to pretty much everything on there. If you enjoy the show, hey, why not give us a rating and a review on iTunes, because it helps out the show a lot. That's pretty much it.
And listen to my podcast. Right, that's it. Waiting to Exhale.
Oh, yeah.
Listen to my podcast.
Yeah.
I forgot to plug my own podcast.
Definitely do that.
Wait and Exhale. We're on iTunes and wherever you get your podcast.
Hell yeah. Definitely check it out. It's a lot of fun. Like I said, they just entered their 3rd season, which I'm really looking forward to. So check that out. Thanks again, Wynter. Bye.